Welcome everyone to the SUSECON Digital 2022. Um, Today we have a very interesting topic that we want to share with you, which is about managing and securing microservices with SUSE Rancher, Istio, and NeuVector. So before I start, let me introduce who we are. If we haven't met before, my name is Derek. I'm based out of Hong Kong in Asia. I'm the principal technologist for APJ region. Together with me today is my colleague, Deepak. Deepak, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yes, Derek, thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Deepak Patel. I'm a solution architect with the GSI team at SUSE, and I'm based out of Bangalore, India.
Thank you, Deepak. It's my pleasure and honor to be able to co-present with you on this very interesting topic that are very often asked by our customers on the field.
Yeah.
Um, well, um, Before we start, maybe we briefly introduce what we are going to present in the next 30 minutes. Basically, what we want to share with you is why we pick up this topic, why is it important, especially when it comes down to application modernization using microservices architecture. We'll share with you what are the benefits and challenges with the use of microservices, and then we'll then deep dive into the technology using Istio to manage your microservices in the production environment. Um, Security is a very top priority for customers when they want to go into production environment. And so we have the end-to-end cloud-native security solution called NeuVector to be able to protect all your containerized environment on Kubernetes. Even if you are running microservices, you can still secure it using NeuVector. We'll take a look at how this technology can help you to improve the security posture of your microservice services running on Kubernetes. We'll recap all this technology together to give you a guideline on the best practice of using all this technology to run along with your application modernization. So since we have a lot to go through, why not we just kickstart? Before we jump into what the technology is, maybe I just ask Deepak, what do you see on the field when it comes down to microservices? Why do a lot of customers are looking for it? What is it? Can you share with us more about that, please?
Yeah, glad to do that, Derek. Thank you. So, um, customers today demand services 24 by 7, 365 days a year, right? That means the services need to be available all the time. Traditional applications were built with the monolithic architecture, which was a one single big application. Making any changes to that application based on the business need was a very lengthy process, used to cost time and money, and required rigorous testings. That was a downfall of the uh, monolithic application. Now, to do away with that, we basically derived the new microservices application. And under this new architecture, the applications are broken into small functions which does discrete and its unique job, and these are all built using containers, right? And they are loosely coupled with each other so that they can talk to each other using their own APIs, and it's easily scalable, and it meets our business need to improvise and to innovate based on what the business needs are. Now, that was, microservices, but it does also bring its challenges, right? If you look at from a security perspective, the Kubernetes clusters are secured through either a firewall or a proxy in front of it. But once we are into the cluster, the microservices talks to each other freely. Now, if you don't have an additional layer of security within the microservices, there's a possibility of man-in-the-middle attack, which puts us at risk. Now, if our developers don't take this they would need to have an additional logic to secure their applications, which does add more work for the developers. Um, if when your landscape for the microservices grows, and this can grow pretty quickly, because your business would need more and more applications to satisfy your consumer needs. This can quickly grow, and it can pose a threat in terms of how do you really manage them at scale, right? So you need to know how your applications are interacting with each other. Are they making are they getting the right service levels between them? How do we really know that? And observability becomes a challenge, and again, the developers needs to add special logic to ensure that these are taken care of. And again, we just talked about the scale. When microservices grows, how do we really manage them? And these are some of the challenges that actually we face when we deploy microservices and then it really starts growing, Derek.
Interesting. Thanks for sharing all these challenges. It sounds like the microservices, while it has its own benefits to make it easy to scale, introduce new features quickly without restarting the whole digital services again and again, which is interrupting their customers, giving them bad experience. Microservices can help them to smooth out all this.
Correct.
So the how about the industry? Is there any technology or framework that can help the developers to simplify their work when they need to run the microservices? You mentioned that they need to add a lot of logic by themselves without all this framework. Is there anything in the industry that can help them to make their developers' life easier and more productive?
Absolutely, Derek. And that brings us to Service Mesh. So,
I see.
Service Mesh is a dedicated solution that helps to take away all those difficulties that we talked about, or the challenges that we talked about related to microservices, right? It adds this transparently so that the developers really don't have to do any code changes within their application, and all this heavy lifting of all those capabilities is done by Service Mesh in this case.
Wow. So in
Out of the
reality,
box, by the way.
yeah, what are the options for Surface Mesh in the open source world?
Yeah, so I mean, there are a couple of them, but Istio is one of the most prominent ones. But then, other than Istio, there is options like Linkerd, Tariff, Open Service Mesh, and etc. And these are all the open source service mesh. But Istio is the most popular one, if you ask me.
Oh, can you share more about what Istio is?
Absolutely. So, Istio is an implementation of the service mesh. It's an open source one, and it does primarily three things for us. It does traffic management, which means that when our microservices, when they are scattered, or they may be running in a single cluster, or maybe scattered across clusters, or maybe some services may be running on the VMs. Service mesh helps us to ensure that all these microservices can talk to each other securely, and it does all the load balancing stuff, where you need to have quality of service between these microservices through their respective protocols like HTTP, gRPC, WebSockets, TCP. It does by itself out of the box, and it also brings in fine grained control for our developers so that they can write the desired routing rules. They can also have additional retries and failover logics if the services does not respond. So if they want to really test all those things real quickly, inject some faults and find out how the application would behave, the microservices application could behave, it's done out of the box. And in this way, developers can actually do a complex deployment such as A/B testings and candidate deployment very easily with Service Mesh. And then in addition to that, it also brings in all the telemetry data which the microservices are talking with each other on the front face, where, using tools like Prometheus and Grafana. And then on the security aspect, when certain verticals would typically want end-to-end service, encryptions and security. In such cases, Istio provides a strong authentication and authorization mechanism, and also provides a mutual TLS encryption so that the services are more secured within the service mesh.
Wow, looks like this is still does a lot of magic to make sure all the services are traffic are secure, manageable, and improve the visibility of how these microservices are interacting one another to help us to improve the performance.
That is
That's
correct.
great.
That's correct.
Wow. Can you share with us how does it work internally? How it still functions indeed?
Absolutely. So Istio at a high level is broken. The Istio architecture is broken into two parts. One is the data plane, and the data plane consists of proxies, Envoy proxy, and this Envoy proxy runs as a sidecar within our application. And through the Envoy proxy, your all of our services are talks to each other, right? And it gives the necessary fine grain load balancing, TLS termination, and all other things that typically Istio provides. On the control plane side, it basically gives us the ability to configure the service level configurations like routing, fault injections, certificate managements to handle the security aspects. It also gives us the ability to have authentication and authorization through its components. So that's the typical high level Istio architecture. From Istio architecture. I'm sorry.
Wow. So, so you mentioned about the data plane. Is there
Yes.
anything that developers need to work out to work with this data plane thing here?
No, no. It basically, once we enable Istio within the Kubernetes cluster, within a specific namespace where our applications are deployed, it basically just takes everything and it does all the magic at the back end. The developer doesn't have to do anything, not a single code change.
Is there any diagram that you can share with us on this?
Yes, absolutely. So uh, if
Oh, I
we
see.
if we take a look at the above section, which shows typically the communication when there was no service mesh, the services just talks to each other, and there's a direct communication, right? um,
Mm-hmm.
Post Istio, which is just a few clicks, right? The Envoy proxy gets introduced, and all the communication now happens through the Envoy proxy. So the Istio manages all your communication securely through Envoy proxy and does all the load balancing, fault, also those configuration retries and everything, all through its data plane out of the box
Without any application code change.
without
That's
any application code change. That is
yeah.
correct.
So yes, that kind of layer is very transparent to any type of application that are running on Kubernetes. Um, that's fantastic. I can't wait to see a demo. Can you share with us any live demo? Developers like to see things in action. Can
Absolutely.
you have
Abs-
any demo for us?
yes, yes, absolutely. So
Oh,
with Istio, we have this demo for a sample application called Book Info. So let's
mhm.
jump into the demo real quick. This is a recorded demo, and by the way, this is the high-level overview of the Book Info application. Various microservices such as product page, there are reviews, and there are specific containers with versions for reviews, and then there is a detail microservices and a rating microservices at a high level. And with Istio, we create virtual services and create destination rules so that we can get to our application. So let's deep dive into a quick demo real quick. Yeah, so this is the homepage for Rancher, and this will show you the list of the clusters that we have that Rancher manages for us, right? And to deploy Istio, we just need to sorry, this didn't play. My bad. So this is the hamburger icon, and it helps us to navigate within the Rancher Management Server. So we are right now at the RK2 cluster 1, where we need to deploy Istio. So we'll go at the bottom where we see cluster tools, and we see Istio available to us. We just need to click install, and then select the appropriate project, and click next. And then we need to select the components that we need to enable. So we do the CNI, we do the Jaeger tracing, and then we add additional definitions for CNI into Istio. So we that's readily available through the Ranch documentation. We just copy paste it, and then we click next, and that's it. Istio gets deployed. You will see the Istio getting done, and at the end we see success. So Istio's deployed for us. And once you see that, you see the Istio on the left hand side, and you see Kiali and Jaeger. Those are both two components that gets installed with Istio getting deployed on us, deployed on our cluster. And this we can then enable Istio at namespace level. So we are doing this in the default namespace, and we are just enabling the injection of a envoy proxy in that particular namespace, so that all the traffic would be then managed through the envoy proxy. So here we see that's quickly enabled for us. So then any new application that we deploy in that particular namespace will automatically have the envoy proxy for us. So the next step that we're going to do is we're going to deploy our book info application, and it's available on the GitHub. I just need to copy the content, the definition of the YAM of the application, and in the default namespace, I just need to copy and hit import button, and that will deploy the book info application for me. The next thing that I need to do is I need to create the gateway rules. So it's also available on GitHub, and just the import YAML under the default namespace, and bam, the gateway is also configured for us real quick, very easy. And the final thing that we'll do is we'll create a destination rule, so that we can send traffic within our microservices. The microservices can talk to each other, and we do it again through the same method, and that's done for us. So the next thing what we're going to do is we're going to expose our application to the external world using a dynamic host name resolution, and we will create the ingress rule for it. So I'm just creating the ingress rule by providing the required host details there. So this will we will update this rule page by providing the required host details. In the path, we'll say implementation specific, and in the target service, we'll select the Istio gateway, and the port number is 80, and then we hit create. That will create the ingress rule for us, which now exposes our application. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a project and a namespace for creating a load test application, which will infuse data into our application. What I'm just doing is I'm right now creating the namespace as load test, and then through the import YAML option, again, I have the definitions for the pod ready, and I've just select the namespace, and then I'm gonna copy paste the definition of my pod, and then copy paste it over here. And then the only change I'm making out is I'm changing the value of where the pod needs to run. So I'm giving it sorry, I'm giving it a specific cluster the URL that I need to connect to my book info application. So I'm just giving it the required IP address, and then we hit import, and there we go. Once we complete this, we are just going to double check how our applications look like. So in the deployment, in the particular default namespace, we can go and check all our application pods are up and running. And then we can also check the services that gets deployed, or the Istio component gets deployed in the Istio system namespace, and we see the entire Istio components up and working as well. The next thing that we're going to see is the services that gets created. Or by the way, the pods, these are just the previous one was deployment. This is the pods. So here we can see the pods. They are all up and running. You can see them. And then the next thing we're going to do, we're going to see is the ingress gateway that we have, or the services that's created because of the results of the deployment that we have done, that we'll see it in the service discovery tab under services. And again, we'll have to toggle to the respective namespaces. So here I'm just showing you the ingress gateway that we created. And then finally, under the Istio, we'll see the destination rules and the gateways that we have created. And this typically is the summary of what we have done in terms of the application deployment so far. And now what I'm going to show you is how to expose the application. So the ingress is already created. We're going to open that URL. This is a small thing that we have to provide the right landing page. That's the product page. That's the service that we have exposed. And once we do that, you will see the application is coming up. So if we see the book info application, it's up and running right now. And if you hit refresh, you will see under the reviewers tab, you will see different contents, because it's coming from the different containers of that respective microservices. We see the color red, we see the color black, and it's just round robin, and it means that the application is up and working. So now let's test the the workload within Istio, right? So let's see how we can see the Istio data plane. And here's the pictorial view of the data plane. These are certain legends that you can, of course, click on the legends and understand what they are. So what services, what is and pod, etc. And then you need to decide, there are several layouts that you can adapt to your requirements. So I've just shown you various layouts. We'll stick to the default. And then you can, under the display option, start selecting what you need to see, or what you need to know from Istio. So like response time, throughput, traffic distributions, traffic rates, etc. You keep selecting, and you will see on the data plane side, you will see additional data being showcased. And then we can do a quick traffic animation, and our container pod, which was infusing the data, is now actually showing you the traffic that it's creating. So this gives a good view for us to understand how our traffic is flowing between microservices. You can see the throughputs. You can see how each microservice is talking to each other. So that's Kiali from you for you. And Jaeger is the one where, if we need to do analysis of how our application is functioning, we can do that real quickly. And you can see that 5 packets, and then the ratings only gets 2 packets out of that. And we can now find out from the services how they are communicating to each other, how many milliseconds, how many packets they are all talking to each other through Kiali gives Jaeger gives us that detail. And you can click on each of the services, and then look into what sort of a detail that service is having, what protocol it's using, what's the IP that it's using, and all important things that you need to know about that respective services. So if you need to know why a certain service is taking time, here's where we need to look at. Here's where we'll be able to find what sort of a latency that service is having. And you can choose the services as as you would want to see, rather than looking at everything. So that's basically Jaeger, where we can do the traceability of our applications. We can understand how our applications are talking to each other. Yeah. We can see the protocol, we can see the URL, we can see the namespaces, we can see the IP address that it's occurring from, we can see the packet size, and there's a lot of details that we see. And finally, you would want to see how your applications, how the metadata, or how the telemetry data is looking. And here you can even watch it in Grafana. So the Istio data can also be seen within Grafana. You can see what sort of a resource consumption those applications are doing for you, what sort of memory, disk, CPU that it's using. And it will give you a quick graphical view, so that you can understand how things are shaping up for your application through Grafana.
Interesting.
I know that
Wow.
was quick, but
Yeah, it's very packed. You show us a lot of different nice features, how the microservices can be visualized,
Hmm.
how it can be traced, about the API calls between services, and also to analyze the resource utilization through the monitoring system,
Yep.
which is very interesting. Thank you for sharing this demo.
Welcome,
So,
Derek.
what about the security part of it? You mentioned that in Istio it's already give the capability to encrypt the traffic between services,
Hmm.
but is it good enough to roll it out to the production environment? Have you
Well,
come across these kind of questions from your customers?
yeah, well, people will typically ask that, does Istio do a good job? And I would say yes, it does, but then there are much better products available which will complement Istio and get you more from the security perspective. And I think one of them is NeuVector. So, uh, Derek, why don't you take us through this? Why don't you explain our viewers on NeuVector and what NeuVector can offer?
Sure. Let me talk about why NeuVector here.
Hmm.
NeuVector is basically a end-to-end cloud-native security solution that will protect any applications running as a container within the Kubernetes environment. It has a few very unique things that can really make NeuVector useful and shine when it comes down to security protection for all your application running in the production environment. The very first thing that it is capable to do is to be able to discover how your microservices behave in your cluster. And then you will learn all this behavior through the traffic sent between the services, and you will capture what kind of traffic that they are going through. And then you can, based on all this behavior, try to capture them as security code that you can export it and then put it into your CI/CD pipeline, modify it, and then you can have your own very quick generated security blueprint that can protect all your um, services to behave correctly in order to run your production environment. So this is based on the zero trust principle that you just allow what traffic that you can allow them to do instead of just blocking invalid one. So this is the most trendy, popular approach to help to protect your application. This can only be simplified and made possible through all this auto code generation, which is one of the reasons why NeuVector has been very popular to protect it. And let alone this, it also gives you the capability, just like what you see in the Kali,
Hmm.
that you can visualize your microservices. It can also, from the security point of view, to help you to visualize how your containers are interacting with each other. Is there any security vulnerability along with each containers? You can simply visualize it through a few clicks.
Great.
And in addition to the network traffic protection, it also identifies which application process or which file system your application can run or access to. That as extra protection for your application to run in the cloud native environment. And very last thing that it also come with the WAF, the data loss protection mechanism to ensure you also have the compliance met for the data privacy or certain industry that require you to protect their data, not only your application itself. So all in all, that makes NeuVector really on top of the Istio as an additional extra layer of security to protect your microservices.
and and
It,
and
yeah,
and that's a great thing, because a lot of industry which is sensitive, which financial industries, right, wouldn't want to just have one single tool. They would want to have multiple tools so that they can actually get the best out of each of them. Yeah,
yeah,
that's right,
you're
that's
right.
right. So how about showcasing a quick demo about it, Derek?
Yeah, sure. So as in terms of the microservices, the key thing a lot of customers are looking for is to be able to, during the runtime environment, they're able to visualize all this network traffic, how does it go, where to which one, just like the firewall rules, you want to control where they can go, where they cannot go. You have that kind of observability of the services, how it flows. And you also have to control how the traffic can go in and out to the cluster. And also the application itself, if there's any critical or high security vulnerable fix that need to be done, you also want to identify them through scanning as well. So all this are made possible to be monitored and protected by NeuVector, and then all this predefined policy or customized policy that you made can also be exported as part of your security code. So that's all the exciting thing that we see in NeuVector. Why not we just go through a demo to show
Sure.
you how it works in action?
Sure. Yeah. So
Yeah,
let's quickly jump into demo.
yeah, this is the dashboard. After you log in as an administrator, you see that overall the cluster, the security posture, which port are limited as an ingress or egress exposure, and then you can see all the top security events per source or per destination. It also gives you the analysis of this vulnerability reports across different ports or namespace. So this is the overview of your cluster. And then it also comes with the protection in terms of different assets. For example, you can have the scanning on the compliance of your Kubernetes cluster, see how compliant it is. The worker node, the control plane, you can also identify the compliance and vulnerabilities that you can discover in your worker node or control plane. And then likewise, for the container level, you can see similar things. So you can scan all the containers running on the Kubernetes cluster. It will give you, if there's anything that you need to be aware of, any CVE that you need to fix, is all very clear in here.
Yeah.
Likewise, you can also see the policy, for example, the network policy. Let's say if I have the demo application, just like what Deepak has shown us, then you can define how these services can go through the network. These rules are learned, by the way. It's just generated based on how you use the application, and then you can tell how you can control it from there. For example, you can block it from accessing to the external DNS or to certain external websites. So you can do whatever you need to improve the security posture of your application in here through
Wow.
NeuVector.
So it learns automatically. Wow, that's nice.
Yes. And then the other thing is it can also help you to visualize how all your services are interacting with one another. For example, here I look into the demo namespace, and then I can see the microservices application that I'm running and how the traffic is going in or out between each services. So for
Hmm.
example, I can identify one of the service, and then I can quickly see all the networking rules, which one is allowed, which port it does allow to talk to. So you can also check the vulnerability from there as well. If you want to see some more vulnerability reports cluster wide, you can also click on this, the security rules, to see which one has been found and how you want to filter them, identify them, and then you want to fix those things. You can have a clear chart to filter what you want to locate and target to. So this is very useful when it comes down to hunting down certain CVE that you don't want it to exist in your cluster. So it helps you to find out very quickly what you need to fix and where it can be fixed. So if you go back to the containers itself, for example, you can see similar things. Um, you can also see the security vulnerability count at here as well. I think this is the basic uh, overview of the new vector that we are going to show you today. But of course, there are a lot of things new vector can do. We really cannot go through all of this in today's presentation, but there are some other sessions that we can go through as well.
No, it
So why
looks
not? Yeah, why
it looks very promising. Yeah, it looks very promising, and a detailed dive would be a great one. But yeah, considering the constraint of time, I think this is good.
yeah, why not we just recap what we have today? Uh,
Absolutely.
yeah. So this is what we learned today. We just want to recap for you. As we see that microservices enable the scalability and agility of any digital service uh, together with the modern DevOps practice, then this is the typical way where the new application will be rolled out as part of the digital transformation projects. So with the Rancher, obviously it helps you to simplify the management of microservices deployment across multiple Kubernetes clusters anywhere you like, be it on-prem or on public cloud or even on the edge. Um, and then if you want to manage your microservices, Deepak also introduced Istio in detail, how it can control the traffic between the microservices, improve the observability, to make it visualize easier to understand how the API requests going through to the different service stack. And then it also helps you to control the security part of it. Make sure those services can be authenticated and protected over the wire. And then if you want to have more advanced security features, at SUSE, we also have the NeuVector to help you to improve the security posture of your microservices running on the Kubernetes cluster using the zero trust approach to do it. And it also gives you a visualization of how the services behave, and you can also generate all your policy that you defined in the UI as a security code, which you can put it as part of your Kubernetes rollout script to protect your application running in a new environment so that you have security consistency across multiple clusters. So these are the key things that we would like to share with you today. Anything to add, Deepak?
No, no, there's been a good session, although tight one with the constraint of time. But I enjoyed the new vector piece. It's very promising. It just adds up to what Istio provides, and even provide more fine grained detail. Manageability aspects of our container life cycle from a security perspective. So I think overall great. Thank you, Derek.
Yeah, thank you, Deepak. Well, maybe we have missed out a lot of things, but um, we actually have a reference pointer for you to look up to if you want to look up further details. We have the reference page which
Hmm.
appears next slide. um, we provide all the links to all the technology that we mentioned, and if you want to go through more the technology itself, as SUSE, we have the Rancher Learning Community. We encourage you to sign up there to look up all the learning program that we have to learn more how we can secure the or deploy the microservices in your own enterprise environment. So that's all we have today. Thank you very much for attending this session. We hope that you find this session useful, insightful for you for your next project. If you have any questions that you want to ask us, feel free to leave your questions in this platform, and we will answer them and follow up very quickly for you. Thank you for joining the SUSECON and enjoy your day. Thank you.
Thank
Until then, we will see you all next time. Yeah. Take
yeah.
care.
Thank you, Derek. Thank you, everyone.